My name's Pancakes, but yeah, this is the first tutorial I've made in a while, so if it's slightly less quality than the other ones, my bad. People have been requesting this one quite a bit, but this is how you make a CPS system, or cache per second. You've probably seen this come across in some of the housings you've played, like mostly tycoons and simulators. I've seen it used in some other ones, but let's just get into how to make it. Essentially, what we've got here is a money stat. This is the stat that we're going to be using as our currency. Then we have our CPS stat, which is the cache per second. Now, how do we get this cache to the player every second? For that, we'll be using a poison loop, essentially just a poison effect with a max duration at max level for maximum speed. So, how do we then use this? Well, as one might have noted, poison does give the player damage. So if we go to player damage, add a conditional to detect for poison damage, which we can, boom. We will then want to, of course, nullify this damage because we don't want the player to be, being attacked at all times. So what essentially we've just done is create a poison timer. This will act as a thing that triggers 5 times a second, or about that range, and therefore we will want to set up a function. This function we will call timer. This is the function that is going to use or utilize at least the CPS and actually get it working. What you'll want in here is a conditional. In that condition, we want to have a player stat requirement, timer. Timer is less than or equal, this is important so we can account for overflow, 0. This might be a little bit confusing, but I'll get to that in a second. If timer is 0, then we'll want to do an if statement. If it is 0, we want to set timer to 5, because of course it triggers 5 times a second. If that is still the case, then, if that's not the case, so if it's set to 5, it's no longer 0. So what we'll get is an else action. In this else action, we'll be subtracting one of the timer, so basically decrementing it so it gets closer to 0. And after that, we'll be exiting because we don't want anything to happen in this buffer time. After this, what you've basically just done is you've created the loop, which triggers every second. Everything we put after this will only trigger once every second. What we'll now want to do is increment our money by the CPS. So we'll do stat underscore CPS, because that's how you use placeholders. I'll have some placeholders linked down below in the description for your housing creation needs. Now we'll add this. This will essentially just increase our money by our CPS every second, which is exactly what we want to do. One last step though is that in PvP and damage, you'll want to have this on. This will be off by default, but make sure you have this on. Otherwise, this will not work. I cannot emphasize that enough. Another thing is that this poison effect will not last forever. If I give it to myself real quick, you'll see it looks like it's going to last forever, but trust me, that's deceiving. That's not actually the case. What one might note here is just create a poison thing, just like this. Then put this inside, apply a poison effect. If we then find poison real quick, there we go. We're going to make that max duration on 10 because that's the one we're going for. Override, and basically adding this into your loop in this loop over here in the timer loop. Actually, no, not the timer loop. Sorry, my bad. If you go to the poison loop, oh my god, I can't click. There we go. If we go to the poison loop, then if we add this into the if, along with the timer actually, my bad, forgot to mention that. This is an important step as well. Trigger for all players so that it works for you too. You don't actually have to do that, but it's nice to have it. And then have the poison as well. This is not a surefire way to safeguard everything, because what this will do is if there's more than 2 players in the housing, it's going to work. But if there's only 1 person in the housing, this will not work. You will not get infinite poison from this. That's only if there's 2 players activating this loop. Because what housing has done, or in this case HYPIXEL, it has implemented an anti-lag feature where you cannot give yourself effects through functions, but you can give other players effects. So essentially, if you have more than 2 players, this is infinite. If you don't, make sure you have something like a replenishing feature, like maybe on join you give them poison, or on something like that. Just make sure you have some sort of way to give yourself enough poison to last for the duration. So that's my biggest tip for this. Essentially what we've done is we've gotten it done. The reason it isn't working yet is because I am not being damaged by the poison. So if I go in survival, what you'll notice is that our money is going to start going up by 15 every second. If we want to have a little indication, because holograms tend to be a little bit laggy, if we go to timer, we can just add a little noise or sound effect to this. I don't recommend you do this because it will get a little bit annoying, but to prove that it's every second, you can literally hear the sound. It might not be exactly a second, but it's as close to it as we've gotten. You could adjust this yourself by adjusting the amount that it's set to on 0. And that's essentially it. If you've got any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe, like, and the Discord server will also be in the description. That's mostly it for today. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.